Siragusa, broadcasting from Southern California. I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico, and Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Hi,
Hello.
guys. Welcome back. And today
Okay.
we have a great conversation with Keith Abramson and Dmitry Karpov of Elektroneek. We're going to be talking about the future of work and automation. But before we get into the topic and introduce the topic, let's get to know these two gentlemen a little bit. Dmitry, let's start with you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to the audience. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dmitry Karpov. I'm a former Russian physicist who came 12 years ago to the States to do a PhD in quantum electronics, which means lasers, and quit scientific career after the first success in building own startup. Later, I joined Ernst & Young. I spent around 6 years there, working on many innovation and automation initiatives that this large company is undertaking. That's where I've met a type of technology that I'm currently working on as a software vendor. And because of that, I know Keith. So would be happy to share the story of my company from my personal perspective, but for the quick intro, I think that's enough. Let's dive into the interesting topics.
Great. Good to meet you. Let's get to know Keith a little bit, and then we'll go right into understanding what Elektroneek does. Keith, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm a lifelong sales guy. I've never actually had any other job, but I've newly joined Elektroneek. I met Dmitry and the other co-founder, Sergey, and I became really, really enamored with what they've built in just a few short years after graduating from Y Combinator. And as someone that's now been in go-to-market leadership at SaaS companies for about 11 years, I was incredibly excited to join recently. I've been here about a month, so Dmitry will keep educating me even throughout this call on exactly what we're doing. But as someone that's been through a couple of these, it's been amazing even coming out of the gate just a month in.
Excellent. So, guys, tell us a little bit about the company, Elektroneek. I love the name, Elektroneek. You got to give us the history behind that.
Yeah, sure. So Elektroneek is a combination of two words. Electro means automated, and Nick, which is an Urban Dictionary word for nerd plus geek. It means someone who knows the technology and can do the work, but at the same time, maybe not the most social person. So as we say, Elektroneek is someone who will do the work for you, and you may not like the bot working, but it will definitely change the way you work. So what we do is it's called robotic process automation, which means software that is developed using our own product can replicate human actions in computer systems. For example, in any work you do, you typically do some copy pasting between an Excel table, for example, or a web form. When you start that task, you know exactly what you need to do. It will be copying data from row to row, from cell to certain fields on the web. Because you know what you're going to do, you can create a script or an instruction for what they call a robot, but essentially it's a computer program that will take control in the most basic case of your mouse and keyboard and will do the work for you. You essentially get your time back. And in many professions, the time gains are so significant that they redefine the way that certain jobs are done. So let me stop here. It's basically the top of the iceberg, but let me first ask if you understand it.
Sounds good. Well, we're going to learn a lot more of it, right? I mean, that's the conversation today is there's always concern about automation and AI and replacing human beings. But, I think we're going to have an interesting conversation today. So, Kim, why don't you please introduce the topic of the show today and the question or the conversation we're going to have, and let's get right into it.
Sure. Thank you, Tulio, and thank you, Keith and Dmitry, for being here. So the title of today's chosen topic is Process Automation and the Future of Work. The future of work is defined not by the rise of automation to replace humans, but increased specialization of humans on high-value tasks that robots could never accomplish. Now, my first question for you, Dmitry, and Keith as well, is I think you laid it out really well, what it is that your product does and your software does. My question for you is, where did you begin, or how do you determine that task that a robot could never accomplish, or that people are better doing, and the tasks that, yes, in fact, can and should be replaced by robotics? What's that shift?
That's a very interesting question, because typically the conversation starts in an opposite way. It's not where the robots cannot do the things, but it's more like where they can. And in the basic form, if we strip out many AI and other fancy things from the technology stack, it's just about automating any rule-based work. So if you can create a rule for someone, could be a junior hire, for example, and there will be no steps like think about it, then you can definitely automate it. And this technology emerged from big enterprise companies, specifically from banks. I had a chance to work on a very early kind of engagements of consulting firms with largest banks in the States on automating things like document collection for IPO process or project management for IPO. And now it went to many very heavily centralized processes like accounts payable, where you can really automate sometimes the whole job function. You can replace the whole essentially human from that loop. But that's very, very rare. And that's why this technology should not be seen as a kind of cost reduction thing. It's really like time saver in the most basic form of that. If you ever used Excel macro in your career to save time on repetitive actions in Excel, think about it in the same way. It's just about Excel macro on steroids. You can automate any type of work. Of course, in many steps, you need to perform an analysis, or what's more important, human interaction. So let's talk about call center. In call center daily activities, there will be many things that are completely manual and in fact are redundant. For example, customer reports a problem and you write it down and you create a ticket in one system and another system and another one. That all can be automated. But how you engage with the customer to provide the best service, how you build intimate relationships with them to make sure that you hear their problem and their problem is being solved, that humans only can do. So that's the kind of red line between.
So I'm curious. Go ahead, Kim.
No, go ahead. I was just saying thank you.
Yeah. I'm curious to learn some of the use cases, right? I mean, everyone talks about automation. What are we talking about specifically? Can you give us some examples of where this is being applied and how?
Yeah, definitely. Keith, let me start, and you can definitely add more from what you already have seen among our customers and so on. So accounting. In the world of accounting, accountants use accounting software. And there are a few vendors of accounting software globally, like Intuit, Sage, or Xera, that are very popular solutions. Sometimes the choice of software you use is the choice of your accountant. You come to do your return, for example, as a company, and they onboard you to an accounting software that they prefer to work with. Sometimes they work with a few, sometimes with only one. And if you decide to move you from one accounting system to another one, you essentially need to perform a job of taking all your data from one system, moving it, let's say, to Excel, and then uploading to the new system in many, many manual steps. And currently in the States, many CPA firms charge their clients for these data migration services performed manually. Essentially, when you migrate the data from one software to another one, you can map the fields on a piece of paper, and they never change. So it can be completely automated unless the software gets upgraded. It doesn't happen that often. Because of that, instead of humans doing that work, you can now take a bot, click on the start button, take your hands off from the computer, and very quickly you will get the work done, because bots work much faster than humans. As a result, as a CPA firm, you can offer that as a free service, and it could be a competitive advantage. Or you can charge clients whatever you want. You historically charged for hours of tax professionals. Now you can charge for the 5 minutes of bot work, whatever you prefer.
And I imagine there's less room for error. Like if it's a copy paste, a human is manually doing this versus a computer program. It's more reliable in that sense as well.
Absolutely.
So it would have worked today instead of having the the recap show logo on there, which is on Monday, we would have had that off today, right?
Yeah, that's what happens when you're not properly wearing your glasses, right?
Where are you trying to go?
If I wear a robot, I wouldn't go through this.
According to the recap show, we're out of time already. It's only a 10-minute show. But anyway,
Yeah.
for those watching, we do that on Monday. So, so curious. Okay, so let's see if we can dissect this a little bit further. We recently had a guest that was talking about the value of essentially improving the cost of operation to increase margin, because consumers set the cost or the price of something that they were willing to pay for, and so really the only control you have is how much margin can you generate at that price point. And they've applied this to manufacturing of consumer packaged goods. So I'm thinking in services, in the services business, there's always the battle of proving that you have a higher value to offer and justifying the higher cost for that value. But what I'm hearing is that even in the services business, with some of this automation, you actually can increase the value that you're generating without necessarily increasing the cost to the end user. Do you have any cases where that's been applied and the impact that's had on margin, or is that one of the use cases you're looking to achieve?
It's a really interesting point there, and I think it crosses over to some of our unique selling proposition out on the market, which is that historically this domain of process automation, as Dmitry has mentioned, has been the domain of the large enterprise, where they're looking to turn $2 million of labor spend into $1 million of labor spend. So these are massive processes with massive challenges and C-level individuals figuring them out on the macro level. So a big part of our value prop is the democratization of this. And we're doing this via cost model and making this accessible to the small and medium enterprise that simply can't afford to go out and just keep ringing the cash register every time there's another small process that they want to automate. That could be something as simple as building a list for their sales team. We did it quite literally just today with our sales team. We were doing some web harvesting of data, and this is a process that literally we just went and ballparked and looked at maybe doing manually. Probably would have taken about 10 or 11 hours worth of work. We asked our internal team to build a bot as a quick case study. That bot was returned from build to output in about 16 minutes. And this was about 11 hours worth of work. So the use cases are manifold, and the examples are happening dozens of times a day out in the wild with our clients. We don't even know all of them because we're providing something that is effectively a development platform that's very, very open-ended. And we're enabling the frameworks to automate effectively anything that's process and rule-driven that a human was doing that was prone to error, that would take an extremely long, repetitive task, make mistakes on it, and potentially take way longer than it should, translate that over, of course, to the professional services realm. And now you have a firm that can do data in and data out much more quickly and actually focus on qualitative analysis and process creation, which is infinitely more valuable. And now you're talking about a massive amount of time savings, and it has dramatically lowered the barrier of entry to say, hey, we can go automate effectively anything. We're only limited by our imagination here in creating an automated process.
It sounds like you're disrupting the BPO, the business process outsourcing marketplace, which I've seen grow over the past 20 years, predominantly in large enterprises that are about to outsource repetitive tasks that nobody really wants to do, and they need to be done at scale. So they've offshored them or what have you, and it's been very effective. But the smaller businesses have been locked out of it simply because they just don't have the bandwidth or the volume to even afford that kind of initiative, right? We're talking about thousands of people that usually get hired from a BPO perspective. Is that like the niche that or the target marketplace you're going after? The smaller company that would like to have this kind of capability but can't just hire a bunch of folks, but would leverage this technology to essentially replace needing to do that. Is there any specific case where you're seeing more traction that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, let me explain. So me and my co-founders, we spent last 2 years essentially taking this technology from enterprise, where, to your point, it was an alternative to BPO, and bring it to SMBs and mid-market. First, what we decided to do, we will build the product that will be easiest to use. It will be much less complex, so people in smaller companies, more junior developers would be able to do that. And that's what we built, but that was not enough. And we later learned that in order for this technology to effectively be implemented in SME mid-market, you still need to have developers, talented developers behind the tool, because the most value, like in any programming, comes not from a programming tool, but from those who create essentially the code for this robot using the tool. And we thought, where in the world outside of big enterprise could these developers exist? Of course, they can exist in largest consulting firms, and that was the case until recently. Most of our PE developers were only there. And then we realized that if we not change only the product, but the business model traditional for this industry, then we can enable these small businesses and mid-market companies being served by managed service providers or IT integrators who will be our customers, and we will just give them the tool to create this many automations everywhere. And these automations are very rarely could be alternative to BPO outsourcing. Just because in SMB mid-market, they don't have not even the total volume of processes, but there is no single process of that volume that could be worthwhile investing in training on someone offshore and so on. They automating simple jobs that no one likes to do. Maybe building a report for many hours, as Keith described, or it could be just the work that you always do the errors because you do the same thing 2,000 times over a week, and human errors are inevitable here. So we figured out that instead of selling cost reduction to someone, we need to create a tool for small service providers, for managed service providers or system integrators or small consultants, so they can effectively build the small automations for their clients. And the core here, like a big differentiation how we know in the market, is everyone else charges their end users for ability to run automation. And that happened because in BPO, you pay, let's say, 30K to someone offshore to do the work. So if you pay 10K for bot, that's kind of great. As he said, you just reduced your cost twice. In our business, it's so hard to cost, in SMB mid-market, so hard to cost out a single job that could be automated, that it's easier to automate it instead of spending time on calculating what time savings it provides. It's just about having the right tools. And we just found that to get there, we need to empower a new generation of entrepreneurs who will be servicing their communities essentially with this type of automation tools.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I was just going back to you mentioning that you still need to have a developer, right? A person behind this product, this tool, in order to make it happen. Yep. What types of steps have you taken to make that as easy as possible? What were some of the aha changes, perhaps, in the UX behind your product?
First of all, visual programming. That pretty much means you assemble the code from drag and drop elements. Like, hey, bot, open a browser, go to this website, copy this field, save it to this Excel file. Why the developer is so needed here is because in UI level automation, user interface level of automation, the tasks that are left for humans, even if they are repetitive, they are not so easy with regard to logic perspective. What if something moved some way? What if you need to do the process a bit differently, and so on? And also, there is some flexibility required for these processes, so there's such thing as maintenance of bots, adjusting them to work correctly depending on the business needs and underlying IT infrastructure. It just happened that we have users that are non-developers, and they are happy users, but we don't see them being these ambassadors of automation movement. They're great in automating own work, in inspiring their colleagues to give it a try, but to really get to the level where such tools would need no developers, that requires years of really innovating from inside. First of all, in our mindset. This kind of automation, the first thing, many people live it in the world with this paradigm, like I need to automate everything around me. That's great, But if we really want this technology to get to the SMBs and mid-market companies, we need to empower professional developers first.
Dmitry, I have a quick question. You just mentioned that you have customers who are non-developers. Who are these people? Who are these customers? What are they?
So it's a great question. Many of them are data scientists. So typically many functions in companies now, in sales and marketing, now need to have some kind of analysis of data at a volume at scale where migration of this data from many systems is an important part of the work. And when someone is getting hired to effectively provide insights on ROI, on sales and marketing, they are organically keen to find a tool to pull this data together in an automated way. But that's just one example. We have, for example, CEOs of small companies, of legal firms, of accounting firms that just happen to be, let's say, developer, like a hobbyist developer in college or somewhere else. So they take the JavaScript book or something like that, remove the dust from it, and put their hands dirty. Actually, I think there's exceptions. CEOs are effective in automating work. They're good ambassadors of change, but it should start from the top in this case, which is very rare.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Dmitry.
All right, so this is very interesting. Go ahead, Carlos. You have
No, please. No. Go ahead.
Here's what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing so far is the end goal is to do a drag and drop capability where you don't have to be a developer to actually build the automation to support whatever processes you want to support. In the interim, you're empowering the guys who typically are challenged with coming up with automating processes with these technology, this platform to make it faster and easier. And also, if you're a professional services company in the BPO space and you leverage or license this technology, you're certainly going to improve your margin or at least your competitive advantage, possibly even get into a space that you're not in right now. Am I missing anything so far?
No, very well.
That was a good recap.
All right, so
and Keith's like, dang it, I'm out of a job.
No, so
Julia is so fast on the uptake, it's insane.
No, I think this is brilliant. I mean, this is an amazing set of technology. I'm curious how long. You said it'll take a long time to get to that drag and drop capability. Are there some partners out there that might have some of these capabilities you could work with that could speed that time to market? Do you see the value of getting there, or do you think this is always going to end up on the lap of a data scientist or practitioner who will use it as a tool? What is your timeline in terms of actually getting to true automation, which is enabling a business user to use a platform like this?
Right. So we are now in the software on the website, right? That is about streaming. So you can see here, for example, sign up free button in the top right corner of the screen. So create a drag and drop to automate clicking on this button is easy. We already did it. So there's no problem. But for us, for you and me, this is a blue button with a phrase on that. For a computer, that's an element of user interface with 5 different properties. Some of them are dynamic, some of them static. It's less about robots, actually. It's more about the software connectivity of the software that we automate. For example, we have native integrations with Microsoft products. First of all, Microsoft Excel and Word. And there you do drag and drop because we designed it for you for common use cases. So you're more productive building things there. But because these softwares are connected for these types of things. And at the same time, specifically in SMB and small companies, there's so many outdated software, legacy software, home-built software, some project management, engagement management, old CRM systems, and so on. For example, when you apply for a loan in the States, typically that involves for a loan officer clicking on so many different old systems, depending from bank to bank. It could be completely automated, not an issue. But in order to do it effectively, you will use a professional developer because they will build a stable bot, very sustainable with regard to changes in UI elements. So you build it once and you enjoy it forever. If you use a citizen developer, often that could happen that what they built will work for now, but you will need more resources to maintain it, and your overall benefit from this technology will be lower. And in the end of the day, professional developers can build so cool stuff combining this UI automation with their more like custom code creativity that the family of use cases will become the universe.
That's great. Thank you. So we're unfortunately the time flies when you're having fun, right? We're 5 minutes out from wrapping up our show today. I wanted to take it back to Elektroneek itself. Keith, it's my understanding you've been with the company for about a month or so, right? Okay. So
I am newly minted.
So two questions.
That makes you an expert in a startup.
Yeah. So what was it about Elektroneek that drew you to it in the first place? And what have you loved about working there?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a really interesting contrast. And I think we're a little microcosm of what we're hoping to propagate out in the world. Because what are we doing? Automation, right? And it's this popular conception that automation gets rid of jobs. No, it enables jobs. And we are going out and propagating automation. Right now, we're in rapid scale-up mode. We are hiring in 4 countries around the globe. And it's this really incredible idea that while we're out there propagating robots to enable humans, we're having to build a culture from the ground up predicated on humans and what we're building. So it's this incredible empowerment. We're a virtual only company. We have no offices. So what we need to foster, and what I've been charged to foster, is this really tightly knit culture that's empowered via automation, but it's enabled via people. That's all we have. We have an idea and we have a piece of software out there. But if we don't propagate this to market via our people, we have nothing. I know that product-led growth is, of course, all the rage, but it still doesn't happen without people going and putting the software and connecting some dots and doing explication and showing your stakeholders how this software is actually going to benefit them vis-a-vis the lens of those that have come before them and tried it and have experienced the results and have made some amazing things happen on their systems. And we're going to go out in the world and tell the story. That's people-driven. Robots can't tell stories. We're just telling the stories for the robots, but they can't replace us.
Yeah, they'd probably be pretty boring telling a story like this. Hello, unless it's Alexa. Alexa does a pretty good job. So let's as we come on rapid, let's talk a little bit more about that. You say you're hiring people all over the world. What's the draw for them coming in? What's unique about the culture that you've created internally that makes people want to be part of you?
I think there's a lot to be said about changing the world. And one of my personal big decision factors was I would say the 90% of startups that fail never truly find their blue ocean. We're catering to an underserved market. And to me, that's an incredible place to be. And that engenders passion. It is incredibly empowering to work with a small business owner that realizes they can go out and double their revenue by adopting new technology. That's incredible. If that doesn't get you excited, you shouldn't work for us. Go work for a big tech company. So that's amazing. Every single day, that's incredibly empowering and exciting when we're speaking with our stakeholders and our champions at our client base that they've abandoned all of their old legacy technology from bigger platforms and bigger vendors, and they're adopting Elektroneek as their sole software platform that they're building businesses upon. That's incredible. It gets me excited every single day. It's fantastic.
It is exciting. And I think it frees people up to do what you were saying earlier that people do best, allowing people to be creative and to find meaning in what they're doing rather than some type of menial work. And then in theory, freeing up that budget to find the space for those individuals in those roles as well. Final question for you, Keith. If your backdrop is any indication, what are you currently reading, and should we read it too?
Oh, I just got through a couple of books. There's a couple that are sitting right there, and they were recommended to me, and I love them. So Jocko Willink, who's this ex-Navy SEAL, has written this whole series of books. The most popular one is their Extreme Ownership. So it's all about how to apply the Navy SEAL mentality to business. It's awesome. It's great.
Right.
Love it. Yeah, a good friend of mine is an ex-Navy SEAL. He has this mind of a SEAL training. It's brilliant. So here's what I heard. If you're listening to this and you want to go work for Elektroneek, you better get familiar with Blue Ocean Strategies. You got to do it. That's a great book, by the way, too. I'm sure you read it. Sounds like you have. Well, it's been great to have you both on the show. We're going to have to keep tabs on you to see how you progress and see how things move along, because I think you've got you've got the making of an exciting technology and platform that could be very useful, and it can be applied into a marketplace that already exists. Always the challenge to try to establish a new marketplace. A lot different when you're enhancing what already exists, especially the BPO space. So congratulations. What do we got coming up? Stay with us as we go off the air in just a minute. Carlos, what do we got coming up for the rest of the week? I think we have a show tomorrow morning, and we got another one in the afternoon.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, I have the info on the one in the afternoon, by the way, but no, I'm sorry, that's on Thursday. And you see,
I can talk to the one tomorrow morning. We got tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Pacific. We got one with Jordan Wexler, who's with Early Bird.
No, that's the one I was telling you about. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I got it mixed up.
Yeah, you got it all mixed up. Now that's tomorrow with Jordan Wexler
Yes.
from Early Bird, and then we're going to be speaking about how to invest in the next generation. We're going to be answering the question of how we can raise our kids to be financially literate with so much debt and financial uncertainty. So that's tomorrow's topic right here on Dojo Live at 12 p.m. Pacific. That's what we have.
Don't you forget to come back tomorrow, 12 p.m. Pacific. Till then, everybody, stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks to our guests as well.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. All pressure.
Goodbye.
Our pleasure. Bye.